This is the Dallas Prospect Live with DDP. Every legend was once a prospect. The Dallas Prospect is funded by viewers like you through Patreon and PayPal. To support the show, visit patreon.com/the Dallas Prospect or become a member by clicking the join button. Now let the show begin.
Hello, darkness, my old cruel friend. The Dallas Mavericks season came to a disappointing end today, thanks to a very, I think, mismanaged game. I'm not going to pull many punches here. I've been talking about this since Game 5, which, yes, you won. I said if you had to go with Boban in the starting lineup continually, I understood the crazy counter narrative you took there and trying to limit their points in the paint, which they were connecting on at a greater percentage than their three-point shooting. But I said if you had to do that, more than just that game, you were already basically waving a white flag because you got away with it in Game 5. The odds of you getting away with it again were not good. And you really didn't. You still had a chance to win Game 6 because other than Kawhi and Reggie Jackson in the first quarter, the Clippers were not good. But today, the Clippers looked like their full height of their powers. And Dallas was Luka Doncic running nuts and a couple other guys, and that was it. That's what it boiled down to. Luka gives you a sensational 46, 14, and 7. He shoots 17 of 30 from the field. He is, yes, way more productive in the first half, 11 of 15, unconscious at times shooting. The problem is when you have to run everything through him so insistently, so nonstop, and just running down any charge he has. Usually in this series, he was getting to the fourth quarter, and that's why you would see the significant drop-off and how the Clippers would change up their rotations on him and double him more to force it out of his hands. That's when you would see him drop off all series long, was the fourth quarter. At least in the wins, that's how it was working for Dallas. He wasn't putting up a lot of points, but he was still getting it to his teammates. This time around, he hit that wall in the third quarter, and he did manage to push through it. He had 35 at the end of the third after basically having 29 at the half, and he got up to 46 points, which is a playoff career high. I think it's just a career high in general for him as well. But that's really all that went well for Dallas. Yes, you had some things there. The first quarter, they scored 38 points, and then you added the next two quarters and first 3 minutes of the game after that. Quarter 2, quarter 3, and the first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter, and Dallas managed a total of 48 points in that entire span. So as good as the offense was in the first quarter, largely led by Luka. A little bit of a tongue twister, I suppose. They didn't have the consistency there. 46 against New Orleans tied his career high. Thank you, Tomorrow Sports. That wasn't enough. KP was more active. He had 16 and 11 in 43 minutes, 6 of 12 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, however. That's really a big thing here. And again, I'm going to get into my heavy criticisms of the game management. But first, I'm just going to touch on this. I'm going to call out some of the good things worth calling out before I just go into burn it down mode. KP was more active. He did not stand as a decoy in the corner. He was active. He was cutting to the basket, moving without the ball. He hit a couple jump shots, even on pull-ups. His three-point shot wasn't there, but he, at the very least, looked engaged and fully going. I'm still going to say 12 shots is not enough for your $30 million player, for your guy that you're having as your second-best player. That's not going to be enough, but you at least tried to get something more there. Dorian Finney-Smith, huge credit. 18 points, 10 rebounds, 7 of 13 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3. He had himself a damn good game. Dorian Finney-Smith did. Tim Hardaway Jr., however, had a very poor game. He ends up with 11 points in 43 minutes, 5 of 14 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3. Abysmal start to the game for him. Yes, he got the backdoor cut on the first backdoor screen, on the first play of the game, and a pass from Luka that gave the Mavericks a 2-0 lead. This is yet another situation where the Mavericks led after one quarter and yet lost, so they go 30-3 all year when leading after the first quarter, and every single one of those instances occurred in this series. So, as we go here, let me see. So as we manage with this, we have to now move into the negatives. We have to now talk about the overwhelming negatives here. The Clippers bench destroyed the Mavericks in this game. About 30 points out of the Clippers bench. The Mavericks bench gave you, hold on, I can add it up real quick. Look at that, 6 points. 6 points. 6 points. It's a reversal of game 6 when you had 25 points off your bench and the Clippers had 4. Another reason you had to put them away in game 6. Dallas managed to really bungle this game. Like, truly, sincerely bungled the handling of this game, and a lot of this goes on Rick Carlisle. I said, if you had to keep going to Boban in your starting lineup in game 6, you were a fool, because LA, you got lucky when you got away with it in game 5, and if you did it in game 6, you were showing that you were daring them to basically play to the level that they have all year, and they did, and they made you pay for it. And so I said, okay, fine. At the very least, you can't do it in game 7. And they did. And they played Boban 31 minutes. 31 minutes. 31 minutes. Salute to D-Town Text G for the $10 donation. First good news of the day. Appreciate you. 31 minutes for Boban Marjanovic in this game. I said, if you looked at the community tab, I called out the activity thing should go. You should read your comment here in a second. Let me see. It should pop up, but if not, I will. There it is. I'll let it read.
Towntext donated $10 through Super Chat. 1. We should have never traded Seth. 2. We need a point guard and move Luka to 2 or 3, so we can move the ball around and stop having to rely on Luka to make every play.
All right. You played Boban 31 minutes. And I said on the community tab, if you play him in your starting lineup, you were down 70-62 at half, I believe. You were down 8. And I said, if you come out in the third quarter and you have Boban with that unit, you're a fool and you're showing complete mishandling of this, because the Clippers were unconscious from 3 in the first half. I think like 11 of 16, just obscenely good. They were destroying your zone defense. And what did Dallas do? Ran it out there again. Ran Boban out there, kept running the zone. Even when it was painful, they kept running Boban out there. Now, Boban gave you 14 and 10, and I'm not trying to just completely S on Boban here. He's a -1 in the game, but that defense was the worst thing you could have thrown out there. The Clippers had an offensive rating at one point in the fourth quarter, I think it was, or maybe it was the very end of the third, of like 145.8. That's obscene. That is obscene to be in that situation. And that you kept running zone. When they were connecting on, the Clippers shot 47% from 3. They were shooting over 50% for much of the game. And you were daring them to keep doing it. That's mishandling. And I cannot believe I'm saying this. This is how badly I thought we managed it. I had to actually acknowledge and agree with something Mark Jackson said. That's how bad it was. Mark Jackson had a point there in the fourth quarter when the Mavericks were just getting crazy with some of these guys they were throwing out there. Not just playing Boban the stupid minutes they were playing him. When they threw Trey Burke out there and let him run around, Trey Burke in this game he played 8 minutes, 0 of 3 from the field. When they had to turn to him, Mark Jackson made a comment of, if you're looking for answers in Game 7, you've already lost. That rings painfully true in this case. Mark, I mean, I'll get to the front office in a minute. Don't worry, I'm getting there. Rick Carlisle, when he turned again to Boban in Game 6, and then again today in Game 7, to me that signaled that there weren't any more adjustments to be made. He might go to the bench to try and find someone to spark something in the way of life in this team, but they weren't going to do it. There wasn't a counterpunch. They got KP moving a little bit more, but it wasn't anything drawn up. It wasn't anything significant. They didn't run him on the low block. They didn't try and abuse mismatches. They just had KP more engaged and more moving instead of camping him in the corner. You asked to lose this game when you made no adjustments going into Game 6. You asked to lose this series, I should say, when you made no adjustments after Game 6. That's where this state of the team is. Of the 10 players that played today, this comes from Tim Cato of The Athletic. Of the 10 Mavericks that played today, 8 of them were on the roster before January 2019. The exceptions were Boban and Trey Burke. No, excuse me. The exceptions were Boban and Josh Richardson. Why is that significant? That shows that in 2.5 years of having Luka Doncic on your roster, you have done nothing to build around him. Every one of the guys that were here before then, we're still here playing with Luka, playing in this situation. Dorian Finney-Smith had a great game. Hardaway had a great series and an unfortunate, terrible Game 7. That's about it. The Mavericks have not built successfully around it. Their big move, and I misjudged this move. I have owned it. I misjudged the quality of Josh Richardson. I did. I thought Dallas was going to get some kind of facsimile of the Josh Richardson we saw in Miami. That's what I thought. I thought Philadelphia was a down year and that they were going to resurrect him because the floor spacing, right? His uncontested three-point shots, like his percentage in Philadelphia even there, unreal, like 46, 47%. With Luka Doncic, the Mavericks generate a ton of those looks. Hold on, I need another drink. I need like 4 more of those. A ton of those looks. And so I anticipated that being a perfect pairing. A long, energetic 3-and-D weapon on a reasonable contract right now. Here's the thing, though, man. Josh Richardson has a player option, and with how he played this year, there's no chance in hell he's opting out. I don't think that's happening. I think he's opting in because it's a bigger payday than what he would get next year otherwise. So with that being the case, Dallas is going to have to find a way to move Josh Richardson or just bank on him somehow being just never able to get his feet back under him after having COVID, which I can understand. I know some people, salute to Rich Count, our new subscriber. I can understand. I know some people who did get sick with it and still don't feel quite right. Of course, you know, it's a top 1% of all human health athlete. So it's a little bit different, but you do have cases like even with Jason Tatum of the Celtics having to take an inhaler before every single game he plays now. But I digress. You're going to have to figure out what to do with Josh Richardson. I thought he was going to be a major addition to Dallas with the philosophical change that they sold us on, right? Like, okay, yes, we're going to let go of Seth Curry, even though he's the second most efficient three-point shooter in NBA history with a minimum of 1,000 attempts. We're going to let him go. He's gone to Philadelphia. I know they lost Game 1 today against the Hawks. I'm sure there will be people creeping up and trolling because the Trey and the Hawks advanced, and now they've even won a game in round 2. I get it. But it's painful that Dallas made that switch. We'll have to see what Tyler Bay becomes. But they made that switch, basically that 2-for-1. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then they went to the situation as well with Josh Green. They told us they wanted long, athletic, 3-and-D type weapons. And it just didn't pan out. It just did not pan out, at least in the sample size of 1 year. And Curry would have helped this team tremendously because Dallas, down the stretch, their three-point shooting in this series was abysmal. It's another 28% day, 10 of 36 from 3. If you take Luka Doncic out of the equation, Luka Doncic was 5 of 11 from 3, so that means the rest of the Mavericks were 5 of 26 from 3. Is my math even halfway acceptable in that? 5 of 25 from 3. It's bad. It is bad. The three-point shooting completely betrayed Dallas down the stretch these last two games. Despite Dorian Finney-Smith having a good game, despite him shooting well and you got 4 threes and 18 and 10 out of Dorian Finney-Smith. That should have been enough. You got a monster game out of Hardaway in Game 6. That should have been enough. But the Mavericks defense, only twice this series, and I know they won 3 games, but only twice this series did the Mavericks defense ever really stop LA. And it's a shame that they wasted Game 6 because they largely did slow them down. Really, it was Reggie Jackson in the first quarter of Game 6 and then Kawhi in the second half in general that blew the doors off the Mavericks in that game because their bench was terrible. Game 6, Marcus Morris, who for the Clippers today had 20-something points, 23 points for them. He was 1 of 10 in Game 6. I mean, this series was right there. You should have gone up 3-0. You were up 30-11 in the first quarter, and you pissed it away. You made it. I understand Luka gets a scheduled rest, but usually he gets his rest at the start of the second quarter. Rick did it in the middle of the first quarter, and I don't know how that disrupted it, but the Clippers went on a ridiculous charge where, yes, you still had the lead by the end of the first quarter, but it was like 3 points when it was once 19. It completely upended the entirety of that game for Dallas, and they never recovered. They had a chance to go up 3-0 and put this baby away. No one has ever come back in NBA playoff history trailing 3-0. And now Rick Carlisle joins the Uber exclusive. I don't know what this list is. It's Doc Rivers is on it because I know we talked about it last year. The Uber exclusive company of being up 2-0 in a series and losing. Not even just that. Up 2-0 in a series when you won both games on the road and still losing the series. You won 3 games on the road and you found a way to lose the series. You had an unprecedented home court advantage. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And you lost, and you lost, and you lost. Now, if you think I'm building up, don't worry, I'm just getting started because there's some venting here, and I can feel the anger quietly brewing out there. So we need to dig in a little bit to this. We need to vent this out of our system like a cleanse because we won't be sane until we get this out. So in this game, the three-point shooting betrays Dallas. Yes, you still have some whack officiating in this game, but it's not, to me, as bad as Game 6 was. And that's just me being honest. Yes, you have ridiculous situations where you get absurd continuation for LA. Meanwhile, Dallas doesn't get it at all. You have situations where Luka's getting hounded and he's looking for a call, but he's not getting it. Even if he's making the basket, he's just having to bite his tongue and go down the other direction. Again and again, we had stuff like this happening. But the Clippers were the fourth most efficient three-point shooting team in NBA history, the best three-point shooting team in the NBA this year, the number 1 free throw shooting team in NBA history with regard to their percentage, 83 or 84%. They went 24 of 24 at the line today. Again, their bench dropped like 30 on you. You let Luke Kennard, who had played 14 minutes and had like 2 points in the series, come in and drop. I want to make sure I got this right. 11 points in 15 minutes. The Clippers turned this game around. Yes, Dallas was down 8 to start the second half. Yes, they, like Game 6, went to Boban and again and again. They came out hot to start the third quarter. You had threes from Dorian Finney-Smith. You had threes from Tim Hardaway Jr. Hey, that's a nice way to make an appearance in your 1-for-9 look. And you got some Boban buckets there early on. So Dallas actually flipped the script and pulled right back into the game. And then with 7:24 left in the game, Dallas had actually surged 5 points up. 5 points up. And then it all went away because the Clippers closed the third quarter on a 22-4 run. 22-4 run. And Dallas kept throwing Boban out there. Why did you have 5 minutes for Dwight Powell today? Dwight Powell was one of your biggest... He didn't play hardly at all this series, but he was a major X factor in Game 5 when he played. I want to say... I'm going to look it up. Hold on. Dwight Powell was a major asset to you in Game 5. One of the biggest reasons you actually ended up winning that game. Here it is here. Dwight Powell in that game had 22 minutes. 22 minutes, and he was hustling for rebounds. He was grabbing difficult rebounds, 8 and 7, 3 of 3 from the field with the steal. He played 5 minutes this game. He played 7 minutes last game. Instead, you gave 19 minutes to Willie Cauley-Stein in Game 6, and you gave 31 pissing minutes to Boban Marjanovic. I love Boban. I do. He's a great locker room guy, and he's a great teammate. But this doesn't make sense. You can run zone if you really... It would have been destructive no matter what, but you can run zone regardless. But having a guy out there that moves like drying cement is not going to help your defense. They had several times the Clippers just attacked when Boban had to close out on the three-point line, and they just walked to the basket. Oh, God. Such a frustrating thing. It doesn't make sense why this was the counter. You took your most efficient front court player off the bench, and you reduced him to near nothing. And you kept playing Boban instead. So you were daring them. As the game was pulling away, as LA went on that 22-4 run to close the third quarter, you kept daring them by not changing anything up. And then when you finally saw, dude, Luka has fallen off the map in the third quarter. He's only 3 of 11. He had 29 at half, and now he only has 35 going into the fourth. This is slipping away. We're down 15 going into the fourth quarter. Holy crap. Trey Burke, go. Dude, if Jalen Brunson, and Jalen Brunson didn't have a good day today either. Jalen Brunson, 10 minutes, 2 points, 1 of 3. If Jalen Brunson lost your trust to that extent, that Trey Burke, who played about 27 minutes all season, that's obviously an exaggeration. But Trey Burke, if you're turning to him in that situation, you fucking deserve to lose. Didn't censor myself in time that time, but whatever. You deserve to lose. If you're looking for answers in Game 7, the fourth quarter, if you're looking for something, anything, you're just desperately throwing dung at the wall and hoping something sticks, you deserve to lose the game. That's just the simple truth. And that's how it worked out. That's how it worked out. The Clippers bench went wild, danced all over you. You got 46, 14, and 7 out of Luka. And that's all. Like, you got 18 out of Dorian Finney-Smith. That's awesome. That's awesome you got that out of Dorian Finney-Smith. You got 11 out of Hardaway, 16 out of Porzingis, 14 out of Boban, like I said. But you just didn't have any balance. And you didn't have another guy that could handle the ball, so Luka had to do everything. He had to run himself into the ground repeatedly. It's a frustrating thing, man. This series was right there. There's no making excuses for this team at all. This is and I'm going to say it. I don't know if he's gone this summer. In fact, I don't think he is, knowing how the front office feels about him and his contributions in the past, obviously the title. But Rick Carlisle needs to be thoroughly under the microscope. If he's not gone this summer, he needs to be on so hot of a hot seat next year. Speaking of a hot seat, the Dallas Mavericks are going to have a situation where they're going to have to evaluate Kristaps Porzingis. Yes, it's his first year in 3 years not to have an offseason filled with rehab, and that should be worth something. But if Rick's going on the hot seat, I basically am telling him, like, okay, hot seat, we got to do something. We got to turn something around, because we've lost 6, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 straight first-round series. You got to do something, man. You've got to do something. Heads need to roll. You need to basically look at it. Like I said, 8 of your 10 guys that played today were here before Luka, or before January 2019. The point is, you've basically stuck with your same guy the whole, and I saw it there in the comments from Sage Mode, we like our guys, that's what they did. And I love Dodo. I do. He's a great story. I love Maxey. He's a great story. Same time, I'm not hitching the wagon there. They're both, especially Dodo, due for a big payday. Big by their standards. Not like we're talking like max. but they're due for significant paydays. Josh Richardson, your biggest acquisition from last summer where you convinced us that was your improvement. Salute Mel, our new subscriber. That was your biggest acquisition. That was supposed to be the turning point where you were adding a 3-and-D weapon, a quote-unquote third option, maybe 3A if you want to say him and Hardaway kind of shared the role. Didn't work out that way, dude. It didn't work out that way well at all. In fact, in this game, Richardson off the bench was a -8. Let me see. There's actually a better in-depth stat on Richardson's impact over the series as a whole that I want to call out here. And I got a source for it as well that I'll throw out there. Okay, first of all, from 3 in this first half alone, the Clippers shot 61%. The Mavericks were 28%. Any Maverick not Luka Doncic was 1 of 13. But we stuck with the zone. Now, I know the other half of that is just our shooting. It has nothing to do with the zone. I'm just saying they were shooting the lights out and we stuck with it. Richardson was a -38 in 93 minutes this series while shooting 11 of 28. He committed 10 turnovers. That was mid-game we were at that point. That was what you banked on as your big acquisition. That was the big move that was going to fit with that. That's a talent evaluation thing, man. And even in the Mavericks' holy trinity or whatever of their decision-making trio, Rick Carlisle, Donnie Nelson, Mark Cuban. Carlisle himself said he thought from afar for years, which means it could have only been 2, that Josh Richardson would be a perfect pairing next to Luka Doncic. Well, Rick, you messed up. Because either this was the aberration of all aberrations, or your evaluation was crap. Richardson was terrible for the Mavericks in this series. He had a couple nice moments, and he had a couple situations where he knocked down big free throws. Kudos. Good, especially for this team. Luka's next big thing is he's got to make damn free throws. Salute to our new subscriber. Luka's got to make free throws. That's what it's going to boil down to, man. You can't shoot freaking 50-something% in this series, 60% in your playoff career now through 2 series. Like, I get it. It's a beating and it's exhausting carrying this broken-ass team as far as you do. And you do a great job, by all means. Phenomenal. But if we're having to ask Luka to average 35, 40 points a game against that kind of defense all series long, every single series, then we're not going to go anywhere anyway. The Mavericks, whether it just worked out through misfortune or salute Bruce, our new subscriber, whether it just worked out this way due to misfortune or otherwise, the Mavericks hitched their wagon to Kristaps Porzingis, believing that he was going to be, I don't know why the chat wasn't showing up, but there it is now, believing that he was going to be the perfect Robin to Luka's Batman, that you would have, if not a 1-2 option, maybe even a 1 and 1A. You haven't, whether that's KP's health, certainly part of it, or the Mavericks and specifically Rick Carlisle's implementation of him in the offense. As always, I think it's more complex than just the one easy answer. I think there's always a collection of elements here. I think you had your misevaluation put everything on it. You thought your number 2 and number 3 guys were going to alleviate Luka's workload, and neither of them showed up, whether it was through your fault or theirs, or just bad luck. Neither of them were there, and so Luka had to do everything. So you weren't going to have a chance. It's sobering. It's sobering to be in this situation. But, now you got a lot of difficult decisions. I think in the offseason, you have to make several moves. I want to see no less than 4 players change on this roster. And when I say players, I don't mean trade out Trey Burke or something like that. I mean actual rotation players. You need significant adjustments to this roster. This roster is not going to go as far. They've overperformed. And that's why it's difficult for some people, because I don't want to sound like I'm being unreasonable in my criticism of Maxey or Dodo or anyone like that, especially where they came from, right? Undrafted free agents that worked their ass off for 4 or 5 years, improving through painstaking, just thrown into the fire and having to grow as they go, grow as they get abused. Dodo's rookie year in particular was brutal, but they came about and they've reached higher than they almost had any business reaching. You can't keep asking them to take additional steps at this point. You need to just be able to find other options. You need to change multiple players. I think Dallas is probably going to look to bring back Tim Hardaway Jr. I do. But I'm taking it with a grain of salt if I'm Dallas. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, dude, Luke Kennard kind of screwed this system. Yes, he came up big today, but he got $64 million last year from the Clippers, and he played about 30 minutes this series. Not even. He had 14 coming into the game, and he had 11 today, right? So yeah, 25 minutes in the series. Hardaway, based on that alone, Hardaway's number is going to be obscene. And it's his last shot. He's 29. It's going to be his last shot at a big, big contract. Would not surprise me in the least if you're looking at 20 to 30 or something there. Maybe not 30, like 20 to 25 million a year. And I don't know that I want to pay Hardaway that. Because as I've already said, unless we move Porzingis, we got Luka's big deal coming up that we're going to have to figure out how to work around the books. Now, you always can just do, as a lot of these super teams now do, where you just pay your 3 huge names, and then everyone else is basically like veteran minimum to come in and want to play with them. I don't think Dallas is at that level where they can do that yet. Not with the 22-year-old Luka, as good as he's been, and certainly not with a broke KP. And whether he's broke because of himself or our implementation of him, the fact remains it's broke. It's a broken unicorn. The horn is broken, as it were. So with that being the case, you have to make tough decisions. And I think Dallas probably brings him back, but I think Hardaway probably should be one of those guys that you actually reconsider now and say, like, you know, we got really good Tim Hardaway in this series. And when he's good, he's good. But when he's bad, it's brutal. You're going to get more games. If you sign Hardaway, you're going to get more games like this. Now, they might not all be the playoffs or certainly Game 7, but you're going to get a lot more games like this. Because we've seen throughout his career, he rides high, he rides low. He's either the best guy on the court for you, or he is one of the worst. He's the guy shooting you out of games. I think he's a nice player, but I don't know that I want to keep him at a stupid high cost. Now, I don't think he's the main head that needs the role, so to speak. I think you need to figure out what you're doing with KP, whether that be moving on from him in exchange for a bag of beans, and if you're lucky, they'll include a nice piece of string, a decorative string with which the bag is tied. But if not, you got to look at it in the terms of what's your freeing up in terms of your cap space. Because sometimes moving on, yeah, your return might not be much. And I know obviously you have to make the money match in a deal, but you can bring on more contracts that are expiring and you can make it work where it works money-wise, but you're not hampering yourself for the long-term picture. You look to do something like that where you can keep that cap space free because you got the room for a max player this offseason. And I don't think I want to see, if they largely run it back or they say, hey, we're banking on KP with a full offseason, a full proper offseason in his first in 3 years not to have any rehab. We're banking on that, plus Tim Hardaway and Luka's continued growth to pull us through. If we hear another, we like our guys, I might scream. I might. This team played over its head. We saw all year. When they play up over their head to their full potential, they can beat anybody. But they can't do it consistently. And as a result, they could be beaten by anybody on a given night. You have to do something big this offseason. I'm not saying go blow your wad, as it were, on one guy. Boy, that sounds all kinds of wrong. Well, I guess that's subjective, but all kinds of dirtier than I intended for it to. You don't want to blow all your cap space signing one guy. What you do want to do is make your team better. Significant moves. I said before, you don't have to go get one big signing. You can make 1 or 2 or even 3 really good fit signings. I think Atlanta did that this past offseason. Now, they spent a lot of money to do it, right? When they went and got Bogdan, when they went and acquired Danilo Gallinari, they made a lot of those moves, and it paid off. Look, they won a playoff series against the Knicks, and they won Game 1 today, even though they nearly pissed away a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter. They won against the number 1 seed on the road in Philadelphia. Kudos. That's the kind of moves I want Dallas to make. If you've got cap space, get aggressive, get bold, and don't just say we like our guys. Dude, I know post-title until just the last couple of years, we were flipping the entire roster, it felt like, every other year. Significant portions changing every year. And so they sold us on this idea of continuity. Cultivating continuity. That's what my video was called. That was the phrase they used talking about their team moving forward. Well, here's the thing, man. Your continuity kind of sucks. When it's composed as is, you can say like, hey, man, we only had like a veteran minimum slot or like $3 or $4 million open this summer. We didn't really have the flexibility we needed to go do anything too big. So the Curry for Richardson move, that was actually pretty clever on our part. That was actually a pretty good recovery move. I'm sick of recovery moves, dude. I'm sick of recovery moves. We see how many times has Dallas swung for the fences on a big fish in the past, post-title, right? Darren Williams, Chris Paul, Dwight Howard. Like you can cultivate that list. You can put a whole list together. Rich Count, salute for the $5 donation.
Rich Count donated $5 through Super Chat. I like Bob, but he was spent. Switched to White for a spark down in the paint. We need to make a big move this off-season. Keep heads up, Mavs. MFFL.
Okay. I don't know why that's an echo chamber, but there you go. Salute. The Mavericks have swung for the fences, chasing big fish, as I mix analogies here, for a decade. And what's our biggest signing was getting KP to re-sign with us. And if we didn't trade for him first, I don't think he would have signed with us. That's the state. That's the state of things. So, like, while, yes, you're more alluring now than you were in the past when you went fishing, as it were, it's still not something that I like the idea of saying, hey, we don't do round one, so to speak, well, but what we do well is we pick up nice pieces afterwards. Like, Kevin Durant goes to the Golden State Warriors. Oh my God, that's a monster move. Holy crap. And then Dallas is like, Harrison Barnes, get over here. We got a max contract for you, dude. No, man, like, that's an okay player, but he was never going to be a star. He was never going to be that. Like, I almost would have rather you had gone in the tank completely instead of just throwing money out there. And Harrison Barnes is a great dude, but man, oh man, Dallas does these recovery moves, right? They missed out on Dwight Howard when he went to Houston from LA. And what did they tell us? Hey, man, we got Monte Ellis. Now, Monte Ellis was a beast for a year and a half in Dallas before the Rondo trade completely blew that up. But then even in Monte Ellis's case, he was out of the league within like 2 years of leaving Dallas. So, I mean, like, it's just crazy to me when you look at how this front office works. They completely neglected the draft for a full decade, only got back invested in it when they were so bad they finally had to accept they weren't going to get free agents and they weren't going to have the assets necessary to make significant trades. And so they finally drafted Dennis Smith Jr. Oops, that didn't work. Okay. Oh, shit. Here you go. Yes, Luka. Hell yeah. And then he was even better than I think they thought he would be. But they can't freaking build around him. Now, they swung the deal on the KP trade, and hey, I get it. I agree with you in the sense that I do that trade 100 times out of 100. 100 times out of 100, even with how it's worked out. Even knowing then what I know now, I would have done that trade. That said, you still are suspect because you still haven't built anything around Luka in 2.5 years. And it's no longer, hey, it's the playoffs, we're happy to be here. No, no, no. At this point, you got to think, hey, Luka can get a major extension, like a $200 million extension next summer. We need to make sure that we build around him right effing now the best team possible. Not just because it's when we have the last little window of max flexibility, but because we need him to be happy, right? Guys don't, if he signs a new deal, if it's a 5-year, $200 million deal, there's no guarantee he's here 5 years. Now, the Dirk influence in the 41-21-1 is awesome and everything, but it's not going to be a situation where, hey, we got him to sign a 5-year deal. We're locked in, baby. Anthony Davis signed his contract with the Pelicans and within 2 years was in LA. Superstars move all the time. I'm not saying that's Luka's character per se. I have no idea. I've never seen it happen. But at the same time, I know there was a time when people thought Durant would never do anything like that. Now, he didn't force his way out of OKC. He just up and quit and joined the team that he choked against. But I digress. The point is, even if you feel like you know a player from watching, holy pasta faccioli. In your opinion, which player has the biggest trade value? Salute for the donation, Varosky. Varosov. Wait. Hold on. I want to get this right. Hold on. I'll let this read first.
Varsovsky 10 donated MKD 100 through Super Chat. IO, which player has the biggest trading value?
Which Maverick has the biggest trading value? Salute to Roku? Our new subscriber. Who do I think has the most trade value on the Mavericks? In terms of what you could get in return for him, Dorian Finney-Smith, I think, is a tantalizing option, but I don't know what the value return would be. Teams like Brunson as well, even though he didn't have a great series, I thought he would be a bigger factor than he was. That's a tough one because there's a lot of guys I think people like on Dallas, but there's not a guy that you look at and you're like, oh, dude, that guy can be bigger and better here with us than he can be with Dallas. They probably look at him as like, yeah, they're overperforming their contract, but it's not like you're going to get something. Like, unless you package some of these guys together, like you have a deal with Dodo, Maxey, and something like that, which would be, for a fan, heartbreaking to have that move anyway. But unless you made something like that happen, you're not getting any like significant 1 or 2 names in return. You know what I mean? So that's a tough one. But I think Dodo is your best asset right now because you can't move Hardaway. He's an unrestricted free agent. Porzingis, I think, is worth about a bag of beans currently because of how you've utilized him and kind of let his value just plummet in the last season. And I mean, obviously Luka's untradeable, so that kind of rounds it out. You'd have to get creative if you want to trade. That's the simple truth. But I would have told you before in the even prospect of acquiring Porzingis like we did that. Sorry, I was hearing a weird sound effect from my computer. That Dennis Smith Jr.'s value was awfully low, and yet he was still able to be the centerpiece of that deal. So it just depends. It just depends. But salute for the donation. I don't know what that converts to in USD, but either way, salute. That is the first three-digit donation of any kind I've seen on the channel. For that alone, you are in some sort of Dallas Prospect Hall of Fame. Sabonis, please. I agree, and I am certainly getting on the phone with Indiana to see what it would cost to get that because I think they're in disarray right now, and I think you should spring on that. As my dog hacks up something over here. You should get on that and see because there's multiple guys on that roster I like a lot. I think Sabonis is awesome. I've always liked Sabonis' game, but you could also pick up other guys as well that would be very valuable. I agree. I think KP probably does want out. I think he came to Dallas, bought into the idea of like, all right, I want to be the number one guy. Doesn't look like that'll happen in Dallas, but at least I'll be the 1A. Okay, that won't happen. All right, well, I can be the solid number 2 guy. Okay, that doesn't even look like it's happening. I'm just a guy. That's not okay. I'm not okay with that. And I think KP showed a lot of maturity and control at times this year. But man, it's bad, and you gotta do something. You've got to do something. KP plus Jay Allen gets something. Oh, Jalen, sorry. Plus Jalen gets something any chance for Cat. Man, Karl Anthony Towns is an interesting one. I mean, if you could get him, absolutely do it. I would do that trade, sure. But Karl Anthony Towns, I don't know that that's all it would take to get him from Minnesota. Like I said, with how KP's value has dropped, Minnesota is abysmal the past couple of years. They don't look like they're going anywhere fast. But Cat is absolutely one of those guys that completely changes the game. He, as much as we call KP the unicorn, Karl Anthony Towns is in every way a more realized version of that. He's a big man that shoots better from the outside. He's a better scorer, better rebounder. I think the unicorn nickname came about for what people thought KP would become, but injuries never allowed him to become that. The closest we ever saw was bubble KP. That was the only time for his Dallas run prior to his ACL, obviously, where you looked at him and you were like, that is the unicorn. That is the unstoppable force of nature. So we will see. Luka needs help. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And I need another drink watching this team fail and try and help him. Luka takes a lot of bad shots. Yes, he does, but he takes a lot of bad shots because his team can't create. Cat is terrible on defense, though. This is true. But KP for much of the year was the worst defender in the NBA, so, you know. I would rather have the more efficient offensive guy that's more consistent and doesn't have the health issues than that. Let's see. Let me roll through some of these comments here. I'm going to scroll back through to find the people who are tagging at the Dallas Prospect. It highlights it in orange for me, so it makes it easy to find. You are absolutely right. Boban played way too much, but that's because he's literally the only other guy on the squad that can play post apart from Luka. We need a post player ASAP. I agree. The fact that KP could be guarded in this series by guys 6'6", 6'7", and not even posting up is shocking. If you're keeping KP, that needs to be, like, one, your offense and your utilization of him has to completely change. You have to almost reinvent the damn thing. Two, you got to work on an effing post game. You got to have some kind of low post game. I remember when KP played, when he came in and played for Dallas originally, he was big. He was much more muscly than he was in New York. And that was part of the decision by Dallas. Like, hey, we want to help reduce your injuries by putting more muscle on you, more build on your frame. And he was carrying about an extra 15 pounds of muscle, he said. And then he actually said in the bubble when he broke through and people were like, whoa, what changed? He was like, well, for the season, I was playing at a higher weight than I played ever in my career. And then when we restarted in the bubble, I was actually kind of back to my Knicks weight. And I felt smoother and more fluid, and I felt like it didn't affect my shot as much. So he said I was better at my smaller weight. Well, you rolled the smaller weight this season. Granted, again, it's a different season in the sense that highly condensed, shorter, with almost no off season. So it's hard to be too critical in that regard. And yet, it didn't show out well. The leaner KP was not a factor. Do you think drafting some bigger guy like Saddiq Bey over Josh Green would have worked better for the Mavs? Bey has been tremendous for Detroit this year. I still like Josh Green's upside a lot, but Bey, in the way he has shown out for Detroit, really hurts. It really feels like it's right now, based on the fact that you've seen so little of Green, but you've seen a fair bit because of how bad Detroit is. You've seen a fair bit of Bey. It's tempting and totally understandable to say Bey made more sense. I get it. I was surprised by that move. I still liked the Green pick, but I was surprised they didn't go with Bey. For me, the TCU kid, Bane, was the one that really hurt when you thought you were going to have him drop to you. And I think he got snatched up like one pick before you by Memphis. He's very, very good for what we would ask of him. And that's two guys that shot the three very well this year for their respective teams. And instead, because Rick doesn't play rookies much, we don't really know what Green is or what he could be yet. We're just going to have to see. We have to raise KP's value to make him look good next season. Dude, I don't know what it would take to raise his value. I guess if you're talking about moving on from him, but doing it at the trade deadline, then you got to turn him somehow back into bubble KP. But here's the thing, dude. If he's bubble KP again, they're not trading him. Like, it's not enough for him to be... He was a 20-10 guy and had career best shooting numbers in terms of efficiency. I don't think that unless he plays at that level, the same level as this year, but with nearly none of the games missed, I don't think you're going to recoup the value at this point, unfortunately. And I think if you're not going to recoup the value, Dallas is going to be tempted just to hang on for a little bit longer. And if they got to next offseason and we're in a situation similar to this, then I think they would look at it and be like, well, this experiment's just not working, is it? All right, we're going to have to do something. But I don't think they can afford to wait for that. I don't think time is on their side. This is... I'll say it now. I've been saying it, but this is the most important offseason in Dallas Mavericks history because everything other than that which is Luka Doncic must be considered must be debated, must be reconsidered. You have to look at everything and figure it out. Oh, that's funny. That's good. Has to be reconsidered and debated. You have to figure it out. You just do. And that's everything, man. That's Jalen Brunson, who I like. The only other guy I would say is a borderline untouchable for me is Dorian. I think Dorian Finney-Smith is something you don't want to lose. I don't think you want to lose him, but I think his value, I think he's still got a little ways up he can go, and I want to hang on to him because I know the value of him. Can't blame rookies when they haven't gotten minutes. I agree. When Donnie is fired, what young GM would you get? Zach Kleiman is 31 or 32, the best young GM, top 5 GM in the league, says Tomorrow Sports. Man, I don't know what's going to happen, but that is, as I'm talking about people that can be considered, that's Rick as well that can be considered. The brain trust of 3. Your scenario is Donnie in that regard. So we're talking about at least a third, if not 2/3. I almost said a half, and then I realized I know fractions a little better than that. 1/3 to 2/3 of your brain trust, that's franchise altering. And I think one of those guys is more likely to go, and I think it would be Rick. And because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rick signed like a 3-year extension last offseason, I believe. And if that's the case, if they parted ways, it would be like, they would make it sound like it was a mutual thing. Like it was just like, we've agreed to go the other ways. We think it's best for the franchise and Rick as well. I'm curious in the Rick and Luka relationship. I think it's amicable, but we know Luka plays with passion, but we also have seen so many instances of them yelling at each other. And, you can talk about fire and passion all you want. I don't really recall a lot of times of Dirk or Kidd or Terry or any of these guys, even Tyson, who's fiery in his own right. I don't recall a lot of instances of them screaming at Rick on the bench. Like in Game 6, when the Mavericks had that big run and they went up 5, and they were on a 7-0 run and had possession, and Rick took a timeout, and that allowed the Clippers to get Kennard, who was a defensive liability, off the floor. And Luka's yelling at him as it's going into the commercial timeout of, we don't need to call an effing timeout. We don't need a timeout right now. And what happened? Out of the timeout, Clippers steadied themselves, knocked themselves, they were kind of knocked back on their heels and stumbling. They steadied themselves, and they retook control, and then they pulled away. We have those moments. And whether that's misjudging the feel for the game or the situation or whatever, they're prevalent. They are there. They happen a half dozen times a year at least that we see. And they're happening in big stages too. And we're having situations now where, as much as I've praised Rick's adjustments and his ingenuity, I know people who are in the Dallas sports radio scene who praised starting Boban Game 5. And they're like, hey, man, I don't care what the numbers say, it worked. I think it was a desperation move that worked almost in spite of itself. The Clippers just happened to have a bad game in the areas where it would benefit you, because your defensive rating when he was on the floor was still really bad, and it was much better when he was off the floor. And I think it just coincided in a perfect storm for you to get away with it in Game 5. And the fact that you had no other adjustments concerns the hell out of me. I think it might be time to consider whether or not, and I said this during the season at one point, like, all right, I'm officially like in the I'm listening category on this front. I'm there, and now I'm leaning in that direction. It's not like I'm on the fence. Now I'm leaning in the we probably need to move on. He's been here 13 years. I respect everything he's done for the franchise. I respect how he kept us at least somewhat competent, even though you could say this franchise probably needed to tank for a while, properly tank for a while to build up assets. Whatever you want to say, Rick was a soldier for us, has been a soldier for us. I think they are probably at a situation where he needs to be one of the main things they consider. Does this still make sense? Is this tenable? You need to talk to Luka and literally say, is Rick your guy? I'm not asking you to tell me who is. Is Rick your guy? Do you think this can work? This arrangement, this little quote-unquote marriage between coach and star player, can this work, do you think? Because you can move on from, you can change out any number of coaches with Rick. Like, I still think he's a good coach, but he's no longer at that like upper echelon that I once held him in. If you make that change, and roster composition, you probably got to talk to Luka there too, because that's just the state of the NBA these days. It's like, all right, we need to make sure you're happy and content, and that you have a say in this, especially Luka with someone with such a high basketball IQ and everything. Here's the options of what we have available. Who do you want? Who do you want? Point us in the direction, and we'll go throw money at it. That's what you need to do at this point. Because, and sometimes, to be clear, that doesn't work, right? James Harden told Houston he wanted them to go get them Russell Westbrook. They traded Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. It didn't make them better. But they gave Harden his friend. It didn't matter. It failed. And Harden still left them the next year. Sometimes it just happens that way, but you gotta do it if you're the franchise, because it's, if you lose the star, you lose everything. You go into full rebuild. Is there a chance Luka leaves this offseason? No, but I would say you're playing a dangerous game if you don't get something going immediately. What players can we realistically get to improve the roster? I've talked before about my interest in like DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry. I'm actually going to, now that the season's over, I'm going to start putting together a kind of list, if you will, a list of the top free agents I would like to consider. And I'm going to have like a 3-plan setup. Like, if they're going the route of just, we're going for one guy and we're going to just spend all the money on him, essentially, here's the list I want to pick from that I think are realistic. To be clear, I'm not going to put like guys that don't make sense on there. Like, oh, in case Kawhi opts out, I want Kawhi. Well, no shit. If they spend it on 2 guys, him and him. If they spend it on 3 guys, him, and then down here, because you're going to have to take a step back at that point for that third asset, him. That's my plan, is I'm going to put out 1 or 2 videos with the different kind of strategies and who I'd like them to take a look at. The season might be over, but more than ever, I'm going to just roll up my sleeves and get to work, because we got some evaluation to do, and we got to figure it out what the next step is. And I don't want to sit here waiting to find out. I want to try and get out ahead of it as much as I can, so that I can give you guys the best insight and knowledge I can possibly offer. What happened to Powell? He was our X factor that won us the game in Game 5 and played key minutes. I agree, and I wish I knew. Mark's not going to fire himself, only 2 at best. Well, yeah, obviously Mark's not going to sell the team or fire himself. It boils down to Donnie and to Carlisle, and Donnie's been here since before Dirk, so I don't think it's going to be Donnie. I think it would be Rick. We need a trash-talking player like Morris. I'll tell you who I want. I'll throw out a name for free for you right now that I want. I want Marcus Smart. Smart, not Morse. That's who I want. Flower Mound kid. Now, he went to Flower Mound Marcus. I went to that crosstown rival high school for a while, Flower Mound High School. But I would love to have that dude on the Mavericks. We can work out a deal with OKC. They take KP, Burke, Tyrell for Horford's contract and 2 firsts. We flip that with a pick and a good role player for a suitable star. All hypothetical, says Dokes. Horford, he had a good year, but I don't know. I don't think OKC has much need for KP, honestly. Like, I know they don't use Poku that way, but they've already kind of got the long, lanky Euro card checked. I don't know. I mean, you're not wrong in like a team to consider. OKC loves flipping assets, but I think they're in the business of collecting draft picks. But I'll tell you this, man, if one team could pick up KP, not feel it in terms of it hurting their picture, and then somehow find a way to flip him for a value, it would be Oklahoma City. Can't help but think James Johnson would have come in handy, seeing how Melly and Redick were useless. Yeah, I mean, Redick's heel was a problem. He never even played in the postseason, so that's another move that the Mavericks front office made, expecting it to be a big dividend come playoffs, and the heel wasn't right. He missed the entire postseason, and I don't think he ever wears a Mavericks jersey again. And to be honest, it's not a secret he didn't want to be here in the first place. I think he liked the guys once he got here. I don't think that was the problem, but I think he wanted to be with the Nets. It was very much believed that he was going to be bought out by the Pelicans, and then he was going to sign with the Nets. And the Pelicans, despite telling him they were going to buy him out, ended up dealing him to Dallas anyway. And then he proceeded to, on his podcast, torch the Pelicans front office, saying that they basically aren't honest with the players. I think he was pretty much telling you up front he didn't want to be here. I don't think it was a respect issue. He just wanted to go be with a contender. I can't blame him. He's 34 or whatever, and you know that's a chance to go play for a championship versus a team that's going to be hoping to get out of the first round. Three losing packed home games is almost unforgivable for a coach. Losing them is understandable. Same squad. Yeah, I agree, and I said all that. You lost a playoff series. It was historic in the fact that the road game won the first 6 playoff games of this series. Never had happened before. You also had a situation where you're the incredibly rare territory now is Rick. I think Jeff Van Gundy and I think Doc Rivers are the only two to ever go up 2-0 in a playoff series, winning both on the road and then losing the series. Not good. Not good. It's unforgivable, like you said. Part of that's talent evaluation, but guess what? Rick's part of that trust. He's part of that hive mind or whatever they call it, brain trust, whatever lame-ass name they have. Kyle Lowry, friends with KP, might be able to help KP get in the right mindset. Yeah, I've been talking about Lowry. Lowry would be, I think, a very good pickup and an underrated one. Tim McMahon reports Mark will not change coaches this offseason. So Rick Carlisle's already been cleared, according to McMahon, who talked to Mark Cuban. Well, I would say in that case, we'll see. That obviously is a strong statement, but I've also seen times where it kind of comes across as like a vote of confidence right before the axe falls. But we'll see. Maybe they give him one more year, but I think it's still one that needs to be considered. If you're not going to move on from Rick this season, this offseason, fine, but you better have significant roster overhaul because what you got's not enough. And if they run it back, I don't know. I'm going to really keep my hype and expectations and trust and everything else in check because I don't have much of a good vibe about this team if they don't change things in a big way. Heard Lauri Markkanen wants to come to Dallas. Well, if you're keeping KP, you sure as shit don't want the two of them for a front court. He's a nice player, but he's kind of a KP type in a sense. He's a nice player. I like him, but I don't want him and KP together. Who do you think is the best number 2 to Doncic that the Mavs can possibly get? I think Lowry is exactly what they need. I think Lowry is a perfect pairing. It's another guy that can have the ball in his hands and create and score and defend. And that's what Dallas needs, because when Dallas is running and the role players are knocking down shots, your Tim Hardaway Jr.'s, your Dorian Finney-Smiths, your Maxi Klebas, when those guys are hitting shots, good. Everything's good. Everything's flowing. But when they're not, and it's Luka versus the world, and you don't have anyone else that can create, you gotta have that other guy. And I was talking with Rangers King a while back, and he was talking about how for Houston, when Chris Paul got traded there, people thought like, well, why would you have 2 ball dominant guys like that? That's not going to work. But it did. If not for, Chris Paul, I think a hamstring injury in the Western Conference Finals that next year, they would have knocked off the KD Warriors. And they probably would have won a title in Houston, which I know, although I don't see him lurking in the comments anymore, I'm sure Eastside Herald is sick thinking about that series, how close Houston came. But that's just the truth of the matter. They went to Game 7? That's how close they were. So, yeah, you look at it like that, and you're like, okay, well, that makes sense. That's why, it might not on the surface make sense in itself, having 2 ball-dominant guys, but you can have that pairing for another guy that can alleviate some of that pressure. I think Lowry would be a perfect pickup in this case. He's not a spring chicken, but at the same time, I think the window could fit well with what Dallas is trying to do. Icaro, the merch link ain't working for me. How can I get some? Let me shoot you the link, homie. Homie. I don't think I've used the word homie since I was in high school. This is where I'm so flustered and flattered by somebody saying they actually want to buy my merch that I immediately made it awkward by saying homie. And now that I've made it more awkward, this is the part where 27 subscribers unsubscribe. Let me see. There's your link right there for the Dallas Prospect Represent store. It's got some of our merch there, including the Luka Legend tee. You've also got the Dallas Prospect Every Legend Was Once a Prospect. Some throwback design merch as well. Plenty of stuff there. And the new DDP shirts as well. Appreciate you. Let's see. Am I watching the Logan fight? Nah, I'm not going to watch it. I prefer not to give attention to the Logan family. Norman Powell's an interesting name. Zach LaVine is another very interesting name. That's another sensational offensive talent, but I don't know what it would take to get him from Chicago. And I know there's also still defensive liabilities there. Let's see. Boring summer with no Mavs. John Collins max contract. Here's my take on John Collins, right? From a talent perspective, hell yes, give me that. But he's a restricted free agent, and I fully expect Atlanta to ultimately match. And even though the window for them to have to match in is not a week long like it used to be, as was the case with DeAndre Jordan shunning the Mavericks after initially verbally agreeing back in 2015, it's still different in that your money is tied up. So if you get John Collins to agree to a max contract with you, first of all, it's less than the max contract Atlanta could offer. So Atlanta wants somebody to sign, not literally sign, but agree to a max contract with John Collins, because it's a year less than they have to offer now. And they still have, I think, 3 days to match. And if they match, he's theirs on that contract. It's their option. So as a result of that, I look at it and I say, dude, let's say, because if you're going to make that move, it's going to be like day one of free agency. So if on day one of free agency, you offer a max contract to John Collins and you're like, hell yeah, dude, he agreed, we're good. And then 3 days of free agency pass, and that's a lifetime when you're talking about big names. 3 days of free agency pass, and then suddenly at the very end of those 3 days, Atlanta goes, yeah, you know what? We're going to keep him after all. We're going to match that. You lose John Collins, and all the other premium talent that you might have wanted is gone because you can't talk to them or sign them. Realistically, you can't have them wait around for you in case Collins falls through. You can't. They won't. So for that reason alone, I don't want it because it's too impractical. And I think Atlanta, especially because of the Luka Trae Young dynamic, even though both teams got exactly what they wanted and what they needed, and both franchises are headed in way better directions as a result of that draft day trade, I think Atlanta does not want to concede anything to Dallas. And so for that reason alone, because I think Atlanta will match, I don't offer John Collins. Even though I've said for a good while this season, I want John Collins. I don't think I do it in that circumstance because I don't want to get burned by putting all our eggs in that basket and then having it slip away. Should the Mavs attempt to get Sabonis, or that's a long shot? Here's the thing, dude. Sabonis would be a trade. He just signed a major deal. He just signed a max deal last summer. So I go get Sabonis. I call them, and you can do those agreements even before free agency opens. So I do that talk immediately. And I hammer it away, and I hammer away, and I hammer away, and I hammer away. And I do everything in my power to swing either Sabonis or Miles Turner, something. I want to deal with Indiana while they're in disarray, and I can bring someone in of value. That's what we need. That's what we need. To me, that is unequivocally a smarter decision than running out and doing everything, every backflip you have to just hope and pray that John Collins first agrees to come to Dallas over anyone else who will probably also offer him a max, and then that Atlanta is willing to let him walk. The last time that worked out for us was Chandler Parsons, and we all know that didn't actually work out for us. The one thing we were promised with Chandler Parsons is master recruiter. He's friends. He got Dwight Howard to Houston. He can get any other big name free agent. So not only can he be a variable number 2, he can get you a better number 2, which just sounds like a poop joke, but I guess that's kind of his Mavericks career. So he couldn't even deliver DeAndre Jordan. He got the initial verbal agreement, and then he was with Mark and those other guys calling like crazy and trying to get a hold of DeAndre as it was winding down in the Clippers' freaking barricade. I can't process that still happened in real life. Grown-ass men barricading themselves at DeAndre Jordan's house for like a team camp-in with people he hated and played with just to get him to reconsider leaving and sign a max deal with LA. That's too funny. Too funny. Why is Donnie never buy late first-round picks? Last 2 years, 30 picks was sold off for 2 seconds. I don't know. All I can tell you is that, as I've said before, the Mavericks do not take the draft as seriously as they should. I think they've done better in the last couple of years. I think they've made some pretty decent moves. But the problem is that they completely neglected it for a decade. And for your best example there, I mean, it's old news at this point, obviously, but freaking Giannis, dude. Donnie Nelson, and Mark has backed him up on this. Donnie Nelson told Mark, you cannot pass on this dude. And Mark's like, I could get Giannis at pick 13, but I want to keep a max salary slot open for Dwight Howard, so I'm going to trade back to 17, save about $400,000, and we'll take Shane Larkin. Actually, you know what? Didn't they first, and I'm trying to run back here, maybe I'm mixing up years. Did they first take then Kelly Olynyk and then trade him for Shane Larkin? It's twofold how bad it was. It went from like franchise cornerstone to, all right, well, a very good player to, oh my God, Shane Larkin. And I know Larkin has done well for himself playing overseas now, but it's just like, dude, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? That set us back years. That's just the reality of it. So I don't know, man. I don't like playing the restricted free agency game. I try and get Indiana on the phone, and I try to make more magic happen, because what Mark has been pretty damn good at in his career is swinging blockbusters, for better and worse. So I get on the phone and I try to get Domantas Sabonis or Miles Turner, whatever I got to do, short of Luka, obviously. Salute to all of my other Mavs fans for life, my MFFLs. The 145 of you in the house, what is up? If you haven't already, drop a like on this video. Consider subscribing to the Dallas Prospect. We are here to commiserate for the day, but we only do this for the day, and then we turn our attention to next year. Starting tomorrow, we turn our attention towards the future, because you got to build better moving forward. What we've done till now is not nearly good enough, and we're going to break down all the different ways that we can make this roster better next season, so that we can get freaking out of the first round and we can actually get back to some sense of contention again, because you wasted. Salute to Luke Pham, our new subscriber. We wasted the vast majority of an all-time great in Dirk Nowitzki, especially post-title. Wasted it like figgy pudding. Salute to D-Nick the One, our new subscriber. Wasted it like figgy pudding. We cannot, and likely will not get the opportunity to, do the same with Luka. It's not the same anymore. If Dirk came into the NBA today, even if he came into Dallas, you can't bank on 21-41-1 being a thing. Not just because he might not have the number 41, not just because Luka wears 77 instead of 41. You can't bank on that, because that's not the nature and the culture of the sport and the landscape today. You build or you suffer eventually. You build a contender or you run the risk of losing everything and having to start over. That's just the nature of things at this point. So, we'll see. I don't think they're at risk of losing Luka right now. Don't get it twisted. I think Luka's going to end up signing a new deal here. The question is, do you have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4? At some point, especially a competitor like Luka, you do have to worry about the diminishing confidence. Yes, Luka saw 21-41-1. So did KP. They saw the love and adoration Dirk got in his send-off season, the very end of his send-off season especially. And that's awesome. That made an impact. I mean, you hear Luka talk about Dirk today, you can hear the reverence and admiration in his voice when he talks about him. That said, we're 2 seasons now without Dirk, as sad as that is to say. And once we get another 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, Kyrie risen 5. What is up? Sorry, 4, because I can't count Roman numerals off the top of my head, apparently. Salute to our new subscriber. Once you get another few years down the road, can you bank on Luka still remembering 21-41-1 and being like, nah, dude, I got to be a lifer, man? Closest thing you got to Dirk right now in the league, true story, is Damian Lillard. People like to put Steph Curry in there, and I get it. He's always been there, and he's been there a decade. But it's like, bro, he's like 2 years removed from going to the finals like 4 years in a row. He's got 3 titles. 3 titles. Do you think it's hard for him to stay? Nah, dude. Dame is Dirk. And Dame has the highest respect and admiration for Dirk's legacy as it relates to his city. And even Dame is hinting right now that after the Blazers' 5th first-round exit in 6 years or something like that, or 6 and 8, whatever it is, that he's unsure of his direction. He's basically going to be watching what they do now that former Mavs assistant Stotts is gone, their coach, that he's gone, and they're going to have to do roster reconstruction, basically. And he's basically sitting over here on Instagram talking about, how long do I be patient? How long do I remain dedicated and loyal? quote Nipsey Hussle and all that. So I don't know. The point is, I don't know that we'll ever see another 21-41-1, but the closest facsimile we have to that right now is Damian Lillard. And so we should not take for granted, A, that Luka's just going to be like Dirk in that regard, and B, that that we have him now and just assume we're going to have him forever of his career. Build the team now. Be aggressive. Do not assume baby steps will get you where you need to go. You don't have that luxury. You do not. Maybe if KP didn't regress this year and he was bubble KP again this year and Josh Richardson worked out like you thought he would, maybe you could have, you would have advanced in this playoffs, but you still can't assume that you're in a position where like, oh, well, just run it back and we'll just try and do it again. Richardson will opt in. We still got KP under contract. We'll try it again. It's a weird year. Can't bank on that, man. Can't bank on it. And I'm so exhausted at this point talking about this because it feels like we're screaming into a void. They don't see it. They don't get it. And in 2.5 years of having a generational talent, a phenom. Luka, as far as I'm concerned, he is like The Undertaker. He is the phenom. You have the phenom running your offense. 22 years old, a top 5 player in the NBA, setting the world on fire. And in 2.5 years, you can't build shit around him. He needed 3 ounces of help in this series for you to advance, and you couldn't give it to him. That's tough, man. That's tough to swallow. But I don't know, guys. I feel like we're going in circles at this point. I appreciate this commiseration and this opportunity to vent that all of you have afforded me, and hopefully I've spoken into existence or let out some of what you're feeling as well. But at the end of the day, the facts remain the same. This was a horribly mismanaged series, especially those final 3 games. You had 3 opportunities, as far as I'm concerned, to close this SOB out. Game 3 up 30-11, then Game 6, then Game 7. You had every opportunity. You've joined historic, terrible company, and your roster composition and talent assessment is severely lacking. Even if it just worked out unfortunate against your favor, you made moves insisting that you were the smartest guy in the room. And let me put it this way. Do you remember how people thought DeLon Wright the year before? That was the big sell the year before Josh Richardson. Like, oh, that's going to be the turning point, right? He had 2 triple-doubles late in the year with Memphis. He's second all-time in Memphis triple-double history. Even though he played like only 10 games for him. And they were both against us. Don't subscribe from me too after that terrible joke. But they sold us on DeLon Wright. And in the playoffs last year against the Clippers, he was unplayable. This year, they sold us on Josh Richardson. This year, in the playoffs against the Clippers, he was pretty much unplayable. RD706, what's up? Appreciate you, fam. It is hard times for us Maverick fans, but you know what? We still have a shot in the sense that we still have the generational talent. We still have Luka Doncic for the time being. We still have a golden opportunity to build around him. Tomorrow, we'll commiserate today. I need another drink anyway. We'll commiserate today. And tomorrow we'll get back to work. And I'll start working on breaking down free agents, trade packages. We'll get to it. Because there's nothing else to do. You stay lost in misery or you get back to work and you come back better. And to me, it's only one door you consider. That's going to do it for my time, though, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I wish it was on better terms, but thank you all the same. Salute to our Super Chat donors today. You are our subscribers of the day. I am going to I give you my promise. I am going to build this channel up bigger and better and badder. Bad good. Like, that's 90s slang. I realize that sounds dated, and I probably just derailed my own awesome... Why do I suck at outros? Salute to Vikram, our new subscriber. We're going to build this channel up bigger, badder than ever. We are going to be better, polished content, diverse content. Anything you've seen till now, you will have seen nothing compared to what I'm going to be rolling out in this future. And we're going to start on that very soon. I'm getting started immediately tomorrow. So if you haven't already, drop a like, leave a comment below, subscribe to the Dallas Prospect. Vikram, I will answer your question real quick. Thoughts on who's going to win this playoffs, as in win the championship? That's going to be an interesting one, honestly. Put a pin in that. I'll answer that on another one. But I do think 76ers chances took a big hit with the knee for Embiid, the meniscus. Bucks, that's a good answer. That's probably actually true too. Good for them. Until next time, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Peace.
This is the Dallas Prospect Live with DDP. Every legend was once a prospect. The Dallas Prospect is funded by viewers like you through Patreon and PayPal. To support the show, visit patreon.com/the Dallas Prospect or become a member by clicking the join button. Now let the show begin.